All right, before we start, can I just get a sound check on Zoom?
Yep, we're here. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, this is the special 6 o'clock edition of the Lunenburg Finance Committee for March 20th. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. If you want to join Zoom, the link is on the agenda on lunenburgma.gov. Also, there's a phone call-in number there as well. And with that, we do have two remote members tonight, Tom Gray and Jean Russell. So we do have a quorum. Anna Lockwood is running a little late with traffic, and Tanya is unavailable tonight. So with that, if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks for everyone's flexibility tonight. We are doing a Finance Committee now, and then at 7:30, there's a Capital Planning Committee meeting, which will also be in this room, to try to finalize the Capital Planning Committee's recommendations for the budget. I don't have any other announcements. Are there any announcements from the board? All right. Is there any public comment from the public? I don't see a public except for Superintendent. Any public comment from the committee?
No.
No. And Tom and Jean, I'll just look for your hands, or do you come off mute? All right. Town manager is preparing for the next meeting and the budget in general, although I hear her in the background. So there's no town manager or finance director report tonight. So tonight's meeting is primarily centered around the school committee's approved budget. We did hear their budget, initial budget request a couple weeks ago. So this will just be kind of an update on where they stand. And I didn't ask for the whole team to come back, just for Dr. Burnham to come in and give us an update. So why don't we start? And I will just pull open the presentation. You want the presentation first, probably?
Maybe I can hit the highlights of the differences in the lines for the budget really quickly. And
Okay.
then we can kind of take a peek at the slides. So only some minor adjustments compared to the budget that I brought before you on the 6th of March. Based on a couple of changes in positions that the school committee wanted to take off the cut list and others that they put on the cut list. We did make an adjustment and increased the school committee legal expense line. That's to cover any additional legal need relative to supporting a higher level HR matter, should there be any. We made an adjustment and restored some funding to middle school band transportation and high school band transportation.
Maybe you want to just tell
Which
the
line?
numbers, maybe?
Yep. The section of the budget is 2,440, other instructional services.
Okay.
We restored $1,000 to the middle school and $3,000 to the high school band transportation line. Moving on to section 3300, student transportation. We reduced the general education transportation line by about 11,000. The school committee did vote on the 12th to implement a bus transportation fee, $1 a day, which would be $180 for the year, with a family cap of $270 for the year. And any students who are eligible for free lunch would have the fee waived. Any students eligible for reduced lunch price would pay a $50 fee for the year. So anticipating enough revenue would come in through that bus fee, we reduced the general education transportation line.
What was your anticipation for, how much did you expect to get from that?
We really aren't 100% sure. We had anticipated running numbers at $1.25 a day that we anticipated roughly 25-26% would be eligible for a waived fee. And at $1.25 a day, we were anticipating 75,000. The school committee implemented $1 a day, and then family cap and a reduced fee. So we would have to do some other projection models on how much we anticipate getting in. However, we think it's fairly reasonable to expect 11,000 would come in to cover that reduction. Initially, anybody who paid attention to the meeting on the 12th, originally in the budget was a reduction of the ski team, which is a co-op team. Lunenburg doesn't have enough skiers to have their own team. And by reducing that, that would have put 11,000 back into the revolving account for athletics, which then we could have then freed up some money in the local budget because there would have been money back into the revolving to fund some other lines in the budget. School committee decided to table that decision and not make that cut. But after conversation, we felt that it was very reasonable to anticipate that the 11,000 that we would have realized by cutting the ski team would likely be recouped through the transportation fee. Athletic transportation in the next section of the budget, 3510. We reduced that line to $102,550. That was a result of consideration that the school committee is approving summer camps run by the athletic department, which would generate some revenue. They are also revisiting their school committee policy that prohibits advertisement. Additionally, the meeting that we had at the end of February, I recommended that they contemplate opening up a sponsorship program. So there are multiple opportunities for the athletic department to raise some revenues. So we're hopeful that other revenue sources, coupled with some creative solutions around transportation for teams in general, will help recoup that reduction.
So I'm very opposed to that, and you know that. And you stated 2 weeks ago that you were not going to run camps that would compete with the rec department.
Right.
So
Last night at the meeting, the AD brought in a proposal for 4 camps. After conversation with Angela Clement, the rec director, given what she was running for the summer, those programs should not be in conflict at all with the programs that she's got running for the summer.
So it's my understanding that the current town budget is not increasing her to full-time, which
Okay.
those camps would have allowed her to be full-time. So I'm pretty much, I'm not in favor of that in any
Okay.
means. I think the school needs to stick to teaching, not running camps. And I think we need to support our rec department to take off.
Okay.
So this is gonna all come down, I know, after you're gone.
Yeah.
Right, and there'll be a pretty new school board, but I feel like we were not listened to with that, and that's also are they gonna try to restore a position as part of that, a secretary or something?
What we said was it would depend on how the athletic revolving account does. Right now, it is not in any position to restore any positions. However, over time, if that revolving account can get to a healthier spot, I recommended to the school committee that they be open to the superintendent coming in with a recommendation, should that account be able to sustain some restoration of hours of the secretary for that department. I don't know when to anticipate that the revolving account would get to that place where it could sustain restoring that position.
All right, I want all the details associated with the summer camps.
Sure.
The revenue projection associated with it, and how that compares to what the rec department could do to continue their journey to get to a staffing level.
Okay.
So,
Where do they run summer camps?
who?
The school?
It's the athletic program running athletic camps,
I guess they would run
connected to
them
the
on
sports that they do. So they're running a conditioning camp.
Sorry, I'm late. Traffic was bad.
What is the rec department doing that would be in conflict of a athletic camp? Or is it just,
They're not athletic camp, they're for like grade 3 through 8, I heard. It was originally, I heard, was supposed to be only high school, which would be, but they run best
Yeah.
soccer, they run, sports camps throughout the summer, and it's been something that's just slowly been trying to increase. So.
Right, and we did consult with the rec director relative to what had been set up for this summer, so that we weren't in conflict with anything that was running. Let me... Okay, so what...
What did I miss so far?
we're just going over the major changes and
Okay, major changes, okay.
Are the
What was proposed was a basketball camp that would run 4 days, a girls lacrosse and field hockey camp that would have split days, a track and field camp that would run a Monday through Thursday, and a soccer camp that would run a Monday through Thursday, and a strength and conditioning program that would be available to grades 6 through 12, and that would occur on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays over a 7-week period for the summer. The programs are going to include mini lectures, individual instruction, skill enhancement, games, competitions, and all of the participants would have a T-shirt.
Can I ask a couple questions? What are the hours of those camps?
The general block of time would be 9 to 3.
Okay, so they're staying under that camp requirement for the Department of Health?
I think so. I can double check on that.
It's more,
Yep.
I'm like trying to ask questions to help things go smooth.
Yep.
And for all those camps, if I may share my questions that I'm going to have, just
Sure.
because, previously I served on the
Exactly.
commission. I have a plan B for rainy days, because if you're running a camp, there is an interpretation, and I'll technically change the name from camp
Camp.
to program.
Yep.
make sure you have a plan for, rainy days and bad weather. And so there was something else that so it's a 7-week long plan?
Only the strength and conditioning program. Most of the others are a 1 week, Monday through Thursday.
Okay, just 1 week.
It's just the strength and conditioning program that they're offering to kiddos, just middle high school kiddos. It's over a 7-week period. It's just on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay, all right. Yeah, definitely, you do not want to use the word
No, correct. Yep, we steer clear of that with our extended day program, too.
Right, so you're just going to need to say program, and then
Yep.
it doesn't trigger much, which they do have. I might have it, a list from the Board of Health. I mean, I'm sure you guys have it.
Yeah.
As you said, you stay clear, okay.
Yep, I'll double check with the AD to make sure that he's already taken a
just
look at
wanna
that.
make
But
sure
you are correct. It is well advised to steer clear of the camp terminology.
Right. There is the camp, and there are a few other things that they require.
Yep.
So I'll just be sure of that. So, okay, so most of those programs are going to be 1 to 2 weeks.
Most of them one.
One?
Yep, just 4 days.
Okay.
Jay asked where they were going to take
They'll be on our campus, I would imagine, on the middle high school grounds, because we have lots of other stuff going on during the summer, like our summer program for our special ed programming. The building is open, we've got kids coming and going, so I imagine all of it will take place on the middle high school campus.
I remember what I was going to say, if I may. Sorry, I just came from driving. So I like the plans. What I've seen for parents in establishing a program that usually after they have run for a while, they become even more successful because there's always the question, oh, this is a new year.
Yep.
And you also getting new clients because people usually have where they go to. So I would set from the program description ahead what is worth running and say, this program will only run with X number of kids.
Correct.
And make sure you have, I know this has been put together, this is an idea that came up recently and they're
Yep.
putting together. My recommendation would be to have sort of a pro forma budget for these things.
Yes.
In order to make sure that everything's covered, because you're gonna need, in programs like that, you might need, to have extra water, have this, and everything else that you might need for, running a school.
Right.
And make sure you have that number of how many kids you need to run the program, and that's something that is well advertised. And I would also, for the parent side, I would suggest you say, the closing registrations will close at least a month ahead, so
So that they know in advance if it's not going to run, they have
Right.
an opportunity to do something else.
Right, because if it's a last minute, parents will have a very strong reaction.
Yes,
So it's suggestions on that, that's all.
much appreciated. Thank
Right, again, I want to see a detailed financial plan on this.
Okay.
I can't believe we go into more redundant services in the schools, when for the 5 years I've been on this board, I've been saying, stop the redundant services. This is like really bad. You're never going to get my support for an override if you keep doing redundant services with the town and competing with the other members of other boards and commissions in the town.
Well, the way I see it is, at the end of the day, I don't care who's doing what for the community, but, we gotta make sure we're serving and there's no redundancy, because as soon as we offer redundant services, our buck is not getting that far, right? So.
We're not going to a full-time rec director, but we're going to fund additional funds in the school that could have gone to the rec director. After we sat here 2 weeks ago and they said there'll be nothing competing with it. It is competing with it. You can state strength isn't competing, But camps are competing with it. And Angela could run more camps if she got the budget. And the school's stuck to teaching kids and running varsity programs. Middle school, high school programs. Stop the sports. We've got groups in town that can run middle school, high school level, middle school and grade school level programs. We have a soccer program, we have a baseball program. So tone deaf is my problem with this. The school committee and the athletic director is tone deaf to anything that the town says. Absolutely tone deaf.
I hear you.
I will probably be making a motion on the floor to transfer money from the school department into the rec if this does not get resolved.
So one thing, what I know, Dr. Berman, that I think is, in terms of this, if this is a plan to raise funds to help overall the school budget, I'm not sure it will be successful just because what we've seen in terms of the first year of business. So
The first
at the end,
3 years of it.
Right.
It was a lot of growing pains.
At the end, I see us, the school department, putting a lot of effort on something they may not get the fruits that they're hoping for.
Which is true.
Which is, I don't know if that would happen this year. And if there's a lot of energy going in where you're hiring people, we may end up, not just on that, we might end up with a lot of planning and not being able to execute a lot because we're not going to see the benefits. And when we look at the numbers for what's available, and I'm not sure the revenue, the profit from these events will be worth all the work that's been happening, but anyway, we're here to advise, and
Is it completely self-sustaining, or are you going to pay the athletic director to run the camps during the summer?
No, it would be self-sustaining.
Including his salary and his benefits?
The camps do not include his salary and his benefits.
Okay, so it's not self-sustaining.
It would be a self-sustaining program that,
Is he doing this all within his current salary, or will he be taking overtime associated with it?
Or a stipend?
I don't
Or a
think,
stipend?
no, there's no additional stipend for him. But part of the plan would be that there would be a camp coordinator who would coordinate all of the paperwork, registration, payment, all of those things. So
Where's that
it's
line item?
It's not in the budget. It's part of the program. So that has been factored into what they would charge per participant. The revenue that would come in would cover the staff, so coaches, which would then be determined by the enrollment, depending on the ages and how you would need to break out groups and so on and so forth. But the only revenue that would come in would be after all of those related costs had been paid.
So are those fixed costs? Because if you don't bring in enough to cover those
Well,
initial costs, what happens at that point?
as was already mentioned, there really does need to be a minimum enrollment established. If there isn't enough registration, we're not going to bring in enough to run the camp, with the program. They would have to cancel.
That just seems kind of a difficult thing to do when these camps are a week long, and I'm sure they're not all the same week. So, you're banking on getting enough enrollment in every one of these camps as the summer goes along.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're hoping that maybe you pick up enough on the end camps, their enrollment, you get 3 kids, and now you're way behind, but you've already established that you're doing the camps.
But we already talked about the timing on the advertising and the registration deadlines, and therefore, if there aren't enough kiddos registered to run it, we would cancel
You have
it.
a deadline before the summer even starts then? Is that?
Yeah,
that's a suggestion, by the
Yeah.
way, take it.
it needs to happen that way.
Okay.
I think they make decisions based on the week 1, week 2, and week 3. The other thing too, I'm sort of brainstorming with my experience. The age group, focusing, the teen center, their program is already fully deployed, and they're probably selling some, the majority of middle school kids go to that. And so I don't know what was the age plan for these kids.
It varies for some of them. Sorry, I'm toggling between multiple documents.
No, that's okay. But,
So,
It could be from grade 3 through grade 10, grade 3 through grade 9,
right,
grade 6 through 12.
yeah.
all right, so I think we've been on the topic long enough. I would really suggest you cancel this thought and put that money into the rec department versus this school versus municipal stuff that continues to happen. I see no upside in this, none. I only see downside.
Well, I can say that there are families that definitely are looking for places for the kids to go during the summertime.
Then let's continue to grow our rec department for it.
And again, for this summer, the programs had already been mapped out, and anything that we would be doing would not be occurring when any of the rec programs are running. And to Ms. Lockwood's point, we don't even know if these camps will be successful.
They will be successful in the rec because they have like 4 years under her belt of lessons learned on how to run camps. Communication avenues for it, payment system avenues for it.
Well, I would say that our athletic
director.
director has also done camps himself in other locations, so it's not that he has no experience with that. It remains to be seen what the interest level will be here in town, because they haven't been done before. A handful of years ago, the previous athletic director did do some clinics for kids to come and experience almost like a round-robin type of exposure to the different athletic programs that we offer. And it was the team captains that facilitated that clinic experience for the little ones. But we haven't
Right.
run programs like this before.
My feedback is I just want everybody to hold hands and come by if possible. What do you call that? So there are tutoring classes that happen, like, I have a business Wayland in Westford, and these are, really good school district, like one or
Yep.
two in the state. And I know there are private businesses, especially in Wayland, that tutoring services of, come in and I get extra help for that. And that might be also a revenue source for the school districts, where they can get launch a program with some of the, in partnership with some of the teachers, more on the academic side, as an extra support. And some families will do that, or SAT prep. I've seen a lot of SAT preps in those school districts offered through the schools, and I also see.
Yeah, we can definitely talk to the teachers about that. It might be far enough post-COVID at this point that they might not be adverse to teaching through the summertime.
Right. Well,
Post-COVID, they were
No, I'm just-
pretty exhausted.
yeah, adding to it.
All right, so we got a hard stop at 7:30. I would like to move on from this.
One thing I reviewed briefly the spreadsheet that you sent.
She's going through the spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. Well, can I just say one thing, because it's unrelated? The total line, I summed the total line for the salaries,
And it wasn't adding?
and with the total that you had listed on the bottom, and there was a $42,000 difference.
I'll ask Dr. Gilson to take a look at that.
Okay, I just want to say that off the.
Yep, thank you.
The line on the total line that you have total salaries.
Yep.
Is $42,567 higher than if I sum that column where it says salaries.
I'll take a look at that. I think I may have an inkling as to where that mistake is.
Okay, just.
Yep,
this is-
thank you. The health insurance line changed as well due to,
What was the number again? Sorry.
it's section 5200 in the budget, and the value is $3,692,744. Again, depending on the people, the positions that you put back in or take out of the budget, and the people that would go with those positions, some of them have insurance, some of them don't, they have different plans, there are different costs, so there was a change in that line.
So I have a question related to that line.
Yep.
The previous town manager that was here until August 2024, her budgeting practice for the town was to budget everyone that, a salary, health insurance, family plan for everyone who worked for the town? Mm-hmm. What is your practice?
We basically, it fluctuates month to month. There are changes month to month. Some months we're up a little bit, sometimes we're down a little bit. We do not budget for health insurance for every position that we have. Our budget would certainly go up significantly if we did that.
Okay, so what is this line, the 3.6 million? Can you give me is it 80% of everybody? Is it a mix? How do you
Nope,
arrive at that number?
Off the top of my head, I'm going to ballpark, it's probably around 50% of everybody. But I'll double check that and I'll get back to you on that.
you
Didn't
have a-
we got those numbers when they did the preliminary budget? Has it changed much since then?
Well, my question is, what is her budgetary practice for coming up with that number?
Right.
Well, I think they used
We base it on,
last year's employees and like what they were picking up as far as which one.
we base it on the actual people, like, we have positions, but we know who are the people in those positions. So as an example, if you are a current employee and you're staying for next year, we would continue to carry you and your health plan as it is.
So every time you
Moving
change
forward.
your staff, you got to go and manually update this?
We have to do an updated report to the town every single month. I don't manually go in and change the budget numbers.
Okay.
I did do that last year with the late override and having to make the adjustment to the budget, and the school committee needing to vote their override budget. So I did make the adjustments in the lines because they voted it June 5th.
Right.
So based on all of the employees we knew and their enrollment as of that time, that was an up-to-date reflection as of June.
Gotcha.
Which, unless people left their jobs over the summer, it's reasonable to anticipate that they're going to be there in August.
Because you have open enrollment in the beginning of your school year. Okay. And you said that about 50% of town,
I want to say it's about 50%, but I'll go back and double-check those numbers
I'll
for you.
say about, so then it doesn't have to be
Okay.
exact.
Right, I will say that, this is the sheet that you'd given us before about the healthcare.
Oh, yep.
There was a mistake in it.
All right. If you could circle that mistake and let me know, I will relay that back to,
I think it was, I'm not sure because it's tough to see how everything was linked.
Yep.
But I put it back into a spreadsheet and ran it
Okay.
through.
Okay.
I'll show you afterwards.
okay.
Did it help or hurt?
Depends how you look at it. So it was just off by a little because I wasn't wrapping my head well around the flat 14.84% increase
Yep.
expected, and then the increases looked a lot higher than
Yeah.
that. And then if you go back through, the lines didn't multiply through the same way between before and after and expected.
Well, the other thing too is that when you compare even to the end of last year, right?
Yeah.
Again, there are monthly changes in the enrollment. So the number of people we have on the highest family plan might shift, fewer people on the lowest plan, et cetera. Like, our number on the health insurance fluctuates every single month. So that's why it's hard to get a easy lock-in, like, this is exactly a 14.84%, because we're looking at exactly the same people with exactly the same plan.
So
It
you don't
doesn't.
have like a yearly enrollment period? It's like,
It does, but there are qualifying events that happen. So, as an example, last year and even this year, you know, we have a lot of staff who are beginning families.
Right.
So they jump from a single plan to a family plan, or sometimes not even on a single plan, but once they have a family, they move the whole family to the family plan because they've had a qualifying event. And the reverse can be true as well, that people will drop from a family plan because they've jumped on to a spouse's plan. So we do see fluctuation all year long.
okay.
On section 1410, business office salaries, you'll see a change there to 90,000. The school committee decided to restructure the director of finance and administration position. It's being reduced to a business manager, accountant function. So previously, half of the director of finance and administration salary was carried in the business manager line in the budget, and the other half was carried in HR. With this restructuring, if you go down to 1420 human resource salaries, you'll see there's a zero there now. So this position won't have any oversight over HR, so there's a zero in that line.
But they will be responsible for pulling the entire budget together?
Yep. Because I won't be here, so I won't be doing it.
I'm sure you'll be in the audience watching the fun.
If you go down to section 2210, middle school principal office salaries and high school principal office salaries, there's a reduction of a secretary in the middle high school main office. Half of that position had previously been carried in the high school line in the budget, and the other half carried in the middle school line. So there's a reduction there. Section 2305, the elementary school teachers, there's an adjustment in that line down to $1,455,241. The school committee voted to eliminate one of our specialist coach positions that was grant funded. We have restrictions on how that grant money can be applied, but we will be applying grant money to the intervention teacher at the elementary school. So that's why you see a reduction in that line. It's because there's grant money being applied.
So can I ask a question?
Yep.
The staff salaries that you're now allocating to be paid with grant money, they are not listed in this budget. Is that correct?
They are listed in the budget.
They are. Okay.
They are carried in the budget, and a portion of the title grant money is being applied to offset a .5 intervention teacher at the elementary school.
Okay.
There's also money being applied at the primary school level, but what are the odds of this happening? A position was restored to the budget, and then we also applied Title I monies to offset a different position in the budget, but the salaries of the two individuals was exactly the same.
Oh.
So it's a net zero there.
Okay.
So while there was a restored teacher position, it's not reflecting a change because of the exact salary match.
So I guess my follow-up question is there any staff that's on the school district that is not represented in this budget?
Yep. Any of our extended day staff are fully funded through the extended day revolving account. That's a self-sustaining program. And our food services, our cafeteria staff, they are fully funded out of the school lunch
Program in Massachusetts?
revolving.
Okay. So extended, and those are the only staff that exist in the school district, they're not,
That have nothing to
Nothing.
do with the budget.
but everyone else is here?
Right.
It's just extended
Right.
day and food service?
There are a couple of positions where we would have some grant offset
And
that we
usually-
apply.
Right.
So like we have paraprofessionals, we have grant money that comes in for a special ed application.
And then
It's
you
a
do
federal
like-
grant, and we apply some offset to reduce the overall budget.
Right.
But those personnel are carried in this budget,
Okay.
and we just apply as a reduction and offset.
Offset, and sometimes that money, it frees up the money within the budget to be used towards another line, and that's where we see budget, like on the, in and out budget
Yes,
adjustment.
right. And you might see adjustments in lines year to year, even though the number of staff haven't changed because of where we're allocating grant offset. Again, the grants are specific, what we can apply monies to. So we kind of have to work within those parameters. But there was the reduction of a fully funded specialist coach supporting teachers and students in the district. With the elimination of that position, we then applied the grant funding we're anticipating, because we don't get our allocations for the grants from the federal government till, the end of July, sometimes early August.
Sure.
But we're not anticipating any reduction in the dollar value that's coming. It might be down a smidge. I think this year we were about $1,900 less than we were last year.
Okay.
All those grant-funded positions, are they benefited or non-benefited?
Some of them are benefited, some of them are not.
Are they self-sustained on the health insurance?
No, not always. Not always.
Shouldn't they be?
That's a philosophical question.
I think self-sustained should be completely self-sustained.
But that's it, but the grant monies are not self-sustained. The revolving accounts for programs and the staff attached to those programs, that would be self-sustained.
So the health
The grant
insurance-
monies are not self-sustained.
I think the grants that we're talking about now, like the federal programs, they're more like to offset. They're not like run this program kind of thing.
Correct.
Well, you asked if they're not in the budget, but they are in the budget.
But they are in budget.
So we
Well,
have
but you
staff who are
say-
in the budget, and if they have benefits, their benefits are in the budget, and when we get the grant money, if positions are allowable with the grant money, we apply an offset to the budget.
So the budget carries the person for now, and we just hope we get the grant money to offset that.
Well, I can tell you that if we don't get the grant money, we'll be reducing positions because we won't have the budget to keep them.
Okay. And I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
yep,
wrap around. yeah.
yep. Okay, further down in section 2710, guidance salaries, there's an adjustment in that line compared to the prior budget because the secretary cut at the middle high school was not accurately reflected where the cut is occurring. So that's why that was corrected as compared to the last one. In section 2900, social workers, there's a social worker position that was restored because the school committee prioritized keeping that position and opted to cut a different position. Under 3510 athletic salaries, we did reduce the budget line with the athletic coaches. There'll be one less athletic coach position funded through the budget. And
Why
that,
is it 0 for FY '25?
so there's the fee-based program, right? So there's an athletic fee. Students pay the fee, it goes into a revolving account. The revolving account is not sufficient enough to be totally self-sustaining for all of the athletic programming, and it never really has been. Depending upon the health of the revolving account over years, different lines were moved and funded out of the revolving account, and in other years moved back into the local budget, and other lines funded through the revolving account. So it is possible that when you look historically, there might be years where some of the athletic lines were 0 because they were being funded that year through the athletic revolving account.
So one thing, I know you won't be here going forward, but very timely that Dr. Gilson just joined. I think it's very, I think you got to show all your, not only the expenses, but all the sources of funding.
Yep.
As part of a budget. Very, it should be, tabulated and tied out and make sense for like what the effects are of grants and,
I think what you're talking about, like the way we deal with the sewer shows the revenue that they're coming, and they show us the expenses for all the expenses for everything, but the town is really not budgeting anything, but there are some, but
well, I'll
part
say
of the pack.
perhaps more bluntly, I think that the previous town manager's practice was to only show that which was raise and appropriate, and to a large extent hide other revenue sources from the finance committee. And I think the same thing is happening, I'm not saying it's malintent, but from the school side, is that we don't see the complete picture of everything coming in and how that funds everything going out. And I think it's very good to see that, because you get the total picture of, just take like, Chapter 70. Chapter 70 went up 1.3%. That should be like the first 9 charts in the deck, so that we know that the problem is the state,
Yep.
right? And we're trying to overcome 55% of our budget with the state giving us 1.3%. So we need to understand all the revenue sources, not just raise and appropriate.
Right.
And then the subtleties of it with like, if they're self-sustained programs, I want to see that they're really, self-sustained. You know what I mean? So I'm not asking for it this year.
Thank
I
you.
just think presentation, I think the preparation for all of this.
Yeah, I think, the new town manager we can certainly work together to figure out what's the best way
Yeah.
to approach everything.
Okay.
Townwide for next budget cycle,
Okay.
for sure.
Yep. Lessons learned. Yep. Thank you.
So in the athletic department, I was trying to find it when you give me the numbers.
Yep.
And then I was like, Control F, okay. The athletic director cost has gone down, the line item.
Correct. So
And that's because you're funding with the revolving account in part?
So previously, there was a part-time secretary that was funded out of the revolving account, and for the budget that I brought for you on March 6th, they had already made that decision that that part-time secretary position was eliminated, and therefore the monies that had previously been applied to pay the part-time salary for that individual could then be applied to reduce the salary of either the AD or the athletic trainer.
Sure.
So we applied that offset.
Okay. The athletic trainer is also going down. And what's the logic on that?
It's going up.
Well, no,
Oh, it's going up, sorry. I'm getting, it's late at night.
Oh,
I missed it.
the trainer's going up because
Yeah,
it's
I'm
another
sorry.
year, it's
I'm
a
totally
contract
misspoke.
increase and,
Yeah.
Yep.
And the coaches, all the entirety of the athletic coaches is now here,
correct,
and that used to be paid
revolving.
revolving, okay. And and it's not called out, at least I just opened, I was a few minutes late. Is the athletic transportation called out separately up top, or
So
no?
we did move into the budget, the bulk of the cost of transportation for athletics, because the health of the revolving account is such that it really cannot be relied upon to fully pay all of the bills related to transportation for all of our athletic programs. So we did move it into the budget this year, but we did reduce it, again, because the school committee is looking to change their policy prohibiting advertisement, so advertisement might bring some revenue in. We talked about sponsorships, so that might bring some revenue in, as well as any, summer activities that they run as well.
So the line for transportation, for athletic transportation,
Yep, is now $102,550.
but you said that is not the full amount.
It was, we originally had a higher amount in there. We're hopeful that the combination of potential additional revenue sources, coupled with monitoring the costs on transportation and making some decisions where perhaps when teams are playing a competition in a neighboring community, that maybe parents are transporting kiddos there. We're also exploring the possibility of passenger vans
Okay.
as a potential for realizing some long-term cost savings. So there are a couple of avenues that we're looking at that we hope will,
Do you know, just, and I know you had a slide, and I'm trying to find the cost of athletic programs. Do you know what the,
last year, what it costs in total, we did a presentation for the school committee back in
Okay. So
November
what-
or December. The total cost for all of athletics combined, local budget, revolving account,
was,
was a little bit over $500,000.
okay. Thank you.
Do we want to look at slides, or?
Was there anything else in the spreadsheet?
No, those are all the lines that were adjusted since the March 6th visit.
Okay. And just a reminder, we have a half an hour. I did limit this meeting to 90 minutes tonight.
Okay.
But we do also have a presentation that we want to get to as well.
Okay,
So
so-
are there questions specific on that the Excel sheet would be better for?
No, we'll go through the presentation. I do have some questions later.
Okay.
I think this is the presentation you're talking about, right? You can-
Nope.
No? Oh, different one.
Nope, it's just a couple of slides that summarize the big picture. There's one that just gives you the overview of the total budget, broken down by expenses and salaries and the percentage increase. There's a single slide that lists all of the positions that the school committee voted to cut. It's 28 full-time equivalents, but it's actually 39 different individuals.
All right, so I have the presentation up
Okay.
now. It's behind you, but
Yep.
Next slide. So that's the complete list of cuts.
Right. I saw that.
Next slide gives you a complete list of all of the different expense cuts that were made. Again, this is not different largely from last year. From the last presentation. And then there was a request for an overview of positions that have come and gone over the last 5 years.
Yeah,
so-
and I think you included 5 years to include 26, so I did not have the FY '21.
I can go back to FY '21, I don't
And you
I
said
don't
it
remember
was
adding
under
too many at that point, because we were in
COVID.
COVID,
Yeah,
and the monies weren't
weren't here yet.
coming yet. I'll go back and look.
Okay. I didn't hear the entire meeting from last night, but I heard you saying it's always on the school budget presentation, so I'd have to try to find the FY '21, because I think.
Yeah, I can go back and look
Okay.
through
All right,
those
I'll
slides,
appreciate
and
it.
I'll let you
Good.
know. I'll send you an email and CC.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah?
great. And if
Okay.
you do that, I can add to that table.
Okay.
Does this budget includes the one-time money that the town is looking, the current town manager is looking to perhaps,
The free cash?
The free cash?
No.
No? Okay.
This budget and all of the cuts
Is just,
is just to get to the town manager's budget number.
okay. And we are in the middle of a contract with the buses, but right? So it's a 3-year contract?
We just, yep, the first year will be next year.
Okay. One
That's
note,
settled though, right?
Yes.
that's settled. One note that I made was from the Monty Tech presentation, they bid different routes, and I wonder if that is something that we can do with Air Shirley to perhaps try to create a bigger, stronger bid document.
We can explore other avenues. I know that prior to the last bus bid, we did reach out to surrounding communities to see where they were with their bus contracts. Because if any of our neighboring communities were also in a place where their contract was going to be expiring.
Right.
The thought of kind of joining to
Yeah.
collectively bid.
Right.
Unfortunately, those folks in closest proximity to us were not, their cycle for their bus contracts was not syncing up with ours. It doesn't mean that we can't reach out again. I know that there's a lot of conversation around the need for relief with transportation, not just for regional schools.
Right.
They get relief. We don't get any.
Right.
But we are mandated by law to transport any students K through 6 that live 2 or more miles from school. Obviously, it's a challenge here in town because we don't have sidewalks. Kids can't really safely walk to school,
Right.
which is why we end up transporting all the kids.
When will the bus fees be collected? Prior to the first day of school?
Yeah, I would imagine that we will start the collection right away. We have a policy subcommittee meeting tomorrow, and we'll start talking about policy around the bus fee.
So you'll know that before routes are determined?
We'll know the policy before routes are
No, you'll
determined.
know how many kids are gonna be on the bus.
Oh, yeah, so it's already policy that every year by May 1st, if people are going to take the bus, they have to submit a transportation form. And then we take all of those, and that becomes our roster of riders, and we send that off to the bus company, and then they develop the routes based on the riders that we have for the upcoming year.
Yeah, but now May 1st will come with bills.
Correct, they won't have to pay the bill by May 1st, they'll just have to make a decision about whether or not
But
they're
they
gonna
know if they
ride.
decide.
That there will be a bill.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you,
So we're working on policy so that I have some more detail to communicate out to everybody. But, yeah,
I
folks
guess
are
my
aware.
point leading towards, if there is a reduced number of routes necessary, because those that actually drive their kids every day and still take a spot on the bus don't want to say, oh, I'm not paying $180 to do that.
Right.
Will you be able to reduce your bus obligations this year?
Perhaps. We've had a meeting with school committee representative at the meeting with D-Bus, and they say that most of their communities do have a bus fee, and that they did not see any change in ridership with the implementation of a bus fee in those communities. So I think we're thinking that we will see a reduction and perhaps hoping that we will see a reduction enough to save a bus. I don't know that that's going to happen.
Well,
It might.
At least we'll have the revenue that can help offset some of the costs.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'd like to see the additional revenue of reducing buses, because I don't know, I know how long the lines are picking up.
Yep.
I also know how
Yep.
poorly people are at picking up. I think there should be express lanes and training on how to.
We
drop
tried
a
that,
child
really,
off.
we really did. I can tell you that it was a few years ago, the then DPW director, Mr. Rodequins, was in the drop-off line and couldn't believe that I was out there helping to flag traffic and move the line a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's an ebb and flow. Every year is slightly different, a little more in the car pickup line, a little less in the car pickup line. But it does take some training for people to kind of get used to the routine, so.
So to the positions, the one thing that I looked at it quickly today, I didn't have a lot of time, but I was kind of surprised at how many we added, how
Yep.
many positions were added in 22, 23, and 24, which really kind of should offset the kind of shock around how many we're eliminating now.
It offsets it a little bit, but surprisingly, there's still a lot more that we're losing than we added. There were
I
three different kind of
understand.
categories, right? So there were some positions that we added because we eliminated a different position. So added it in the local budget, but eliminated a different position in the local budget. Then there were others that we added, but they were grant-funded, and essentially, at this point, the grant-funded
Yeah,
positions are gone.
I guess in 22 and 23, it was 23 adds and 6 reductions, so it was a net 17 add over 2 years.
Right, but I think when you take a look at 39 positions here and 10 last year, that includes all the grant positions that came and went, total.
And I think-
It's a lot. It's more than what we added.
So,
But you have level or decreasing enrollment. If
Level.
you go back to like 21,
Mm-hmm.
it's not as shocking as it sounds when you say you're cutting 28 FTEs and 39 positions, because we added so many.
We didn't add anywhere near 28 or 39 positions, though.
In 22 and 23, you net added almost 20, I would think. I'm looking at it, and these are your numbers.
Yep.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 23 adds and 6 cuts. So that's 17.
Yep.
And then in 24, it was 5 adds, 1 cut. So that's net 22 adds.
And then last year, we cut 10, and this year, we cut 39. So it's still a lot.
It's not as shocking as if you just go over the last 2 years, though, because of the amount that was added.
and I think, I asked for that data, and thank you for offering to send me that email
Yep.
for the FY21, because I think that's, last year we had a small override that I passed, and there is another one in the ballot, in the town meeting, and if we have some information, we can give the public that question, because, I was writing notes, and I have several notes from this year budget as I was reviewing these things, and my question is, how did we get here? That was literally a question that I have, and I'm trying to add, that 2 million number and subtract from known extra things. And
Yep.
so for me, I want to make a very high-level analysis of what we're doing, what we did back, and get to a number, so we can advise. So I know for myself, but if I know, I'll be happy to share with the town. But that's that's where I think we need to land, we added this many positions in the average of, we do pay in average the same amount for teachers. Like, we can get to the number of how we got here. And I don't think it should be a difficult question to answer. And we'll have a number that we can then
Yeah.
decide on, is this a level funding the schools or not, or how big of a reduction are we proposing to the schools. And that's ultimately my goal.
All right. So I'm just kind of flipping through your slides.
Let me know when you're done.
Okay, go ahead.
So I have some overall feedback notes and this is literally my little paper that says school department budget notes. And I started listening to the meeting from yesterday, and the meetings, when you told them about the request of data, a couple members mentioned about the request, that you attend a lot of meetings. I do agree with that. And the burden for the next superintendent, but that's a separate conversation there. These schools represent 50%, more than 50% of the operational budget of the town right now. And I do think the finance committee, on the role that it has defined by the charter, is to review budget and operations and give feedback to the town and to the people. And I think it's a fair thing to have these conversations. And I know, you do have a lot of meetings, but I don't think you come to a finance committee meeting too many times. Perhaps, we should start having a meeting in December, have a high-level conversation. But I don't think this process is necessarily what's burdening you. I think there are a lot of things that burden you, but I don't think this
There are a
process
few.
is. Yeah. One thing that, watching your budget process that I've noticed versus the budget process that we go through for the town and that I've watched over years is that is a layer between your operations and us and the town's operations and us. Because here we have all the departments head coming and presenting and so forth. And I think we do lose, some insight about things that perhaps the operation is not at its best. And I think, the athletic department, how we're using revolving funds, I think this was one that this year kind of is a highlight of that. So I hope that in future years, we can continue to work with the school committee and department as a partner. Perhaps we start this earlier, because I think there's a lot of things that we can do together. We're here for the schools. We're not here against the schools. But, some help with the oversight. Your background is not operations, it's not finance. Your background is you're an educator. And I think last week there were many people that talked about the education, that they know nothing about it. Along the line, so I do hope that next year we have a closer partnership on developing the budget and working closer with these operational parts of the school budget that, hopefully we can bring some insight, and we're not doing this in March. We can perhaps do it in December. Another one that I have dug in a little bit is the school choice revenue. And I actually, one of your presentations that you have had, you highlighted similar schools that the town, you brought up the schools, I think it was Maynard, who do I have here?
The comp towns?
The comp
So
towns.
those comp towns came from the work of the budget task force?
Right, so, there was Uxbridge, Ashenbraham, and Westminster, Groton, Dunstable, and Shirley. And I got the charter revenue and the school choice revenue and expenses. And so we have an idea, Lunenburg is at 2.69 of our operational budget on the school choice and charter, not counting Monty Tech. Uxbridge is at 1.6. Ashburnham is at 0.87%. Groton Dunstable is at 1.58%. And Erin Shirley is still lower than Lunenburg and is at 2.37%. And then you gave us the school choice numbers. I only had that today. But I was looking simply at your enrollment data that you had presented, which is an image. And we know we lose, it seems that in average we lose about 15 students between 8th grade and 9th grade. And I think a lot of that goes to Monty Tech. But I would urge the school committee and the next superintendent, because you're not going to be here. Well, you're going to be here for this part, that Lunenburg has definitely lost some school choice students over the years. And right now we are the highest of these surrounding towns that, the budget task force use. And I know Mrs. Archibald was here last time and said, well, we opened some position is still open. But I think if parents are looking for alternative for their schools, the way to help them have confidence is to say, in practice, we will always try to have X numbers. So then we have these parents that are, unhappy with their current school district, and they look at our policy and they say, Lunenburg tends to have these available. Perhaps we should add a policy, let me apply there. So that way, that decision is not coming so late, because I think if parents are looking to school choice their children, there's a lot of planning to do. I think,
We have to submit to the state by June 1st.
right, but parents are making
Typically,
decisions.
correct.
All
Typically,
right, I
we
don't
make
wanna
that
have a
vote in
school choice,
February.
Because it has no bearing on this budget this year, and we have
But-
15 minutes on it, please. Anna, so we have 15 minutes before we have to stop tonight, and I do want other members to have a choice, and then if there's extra time, I'll go back to you, please. So let me just go to the monitor first. So, Jean, any questions or comments?
No, I don't think so. I've been looking on the school committee meetings, so I think I have a pretty good handle on what they're doing.
Okay, thank you. Tom Gray,
Yeah, I also watch the school committee meetings, so I'm pretty much, mostly up to date. I'm still a little confused on a few things, but we don't have much time, so I just go ahead.
all right, Tom, if you have some questions, if you want to just, send them to Dr. Burnham and just CC me, and then we can get them out to the broader community.
Okay.
But thank you. Mike?
I'm just going to ask, just looking for like a real high-level thought on this, and maybe this is out of line. What are we staring down for the following year in the budget? Like, I mean, are we contracted into some large pay raises and such for, because, I mean, most of this budget is salaries, right?
Every year, our budget is mostly salaries.
Right, so, I mean, if we're looking at, a large increase, this is gonna balloon up on us again. We're multiple years in a row now, we're getting hit with this. So, are we facing something like that down? Are we gonna be sitting here next year in this
Looking
same
at cuts?
situation?
Yes.
Okay.
And just to pull on that, I think, again, to the whole process we go through on the budget, we jam everything into like February, right, across the board. Most of these things are known right now. There's no reason we can't start next year's budget right now.
In this particular year, looking at next year, yes, much of what, it's the salary impact for sure is known because, at the start of this year, our contract with the teachers was not settled. The impact was to the current year because that would have been, this year would have been year one of the contract. So we were into year one of the contract without it settled. So we That was an unknown. The paraprofessionals at the start of the school year was an unknown. We settled a one-year deal with them, and we're negotiating with them now for the next 3-year cycle. So that number will be known, the teachers is known, secretaries we settled, so, and we just settled or awarded a 3-year contract on transportation, so that's known. I have a lot more concrete numbers for the biggest part of our budget, whereas even in October this year, I didn't have those numbers. So I am in a better place now to start running numbers for next year.
It seems odd to me that we go into salary negotiations, contract negotiations, without goalposts on what we can afford.
So we always have goalposts for what we can afford.
And 4% this year was something you could afford? I don't
I don't want to, speak for the school committee. I'm in an advisory capacity relative to the budget within the contract negotiations. But what I can tell you from an operational lens, we've started to experience a revolving door. We can't fill positions. This was not typical in the past. Positions are being vacated during the year because people are seeing opportunity, taking jobs elsewhere. And even a handful of years ago, it was never because it was more money. It was, it's closer to home for me, I now have children in daycare, it's more convenient, those kinds of things. Or it's a career advancement move for me. Now, it's about salary. We're losing people during the year. We're tap dancing and trying to backfill positions that we can't fill once they're vacated. We've had to turn to contracted service to meet special ed IEP service because we can't fill the positions and have employees who can deliver the service. So my thinking on this is we can't afford it either way. We can't afford the increase because we have to see cuts, but if we don't do an increase, I'm going to have a bunch of vacant positions that I can't adequately patch through, and the kids pay the price for that. I mean, either way, the kids, if we're taking things away from the kids because of the budget, the kids are impacted. It's not a good situation either way.
I hope you're
But it's a
going
more
into-
stable situation
But
when I don't have a revolving door of people exiting and not getting people willing to take positions here in the district.
I hope people go into negotiations saying that if we settle at 4, we are cutting 20 heads, and we're cutting services.
So
If we go in at 3, we may be able to squeak by. right?
So I don't want to disclose things that occur in the context of negotiation sessions, but I can assure you that everyone is well aware of the consequences and the budgetary impact.
Mike, did you have a...
No, I mean, that was pretty much it. I mean, we're going to be right back to where we were again. And going to what you were saying, I mean, I'm not going to bring up anybody's negotiating processes or anything else, but it would seem to me that, you voluntarily stick your foot in a bear trap, it's going to hurt. So
Yes.
that's where we are. So we stuck this town in a bear trap again.
And like I said, we were kind of in a bear trap in a different scenario.
And our largest
Otherwise-
union, we now know for the next 2 years. And we know busing, and we have a projection on healthcare. We've got to manage to those.
Yep.
And I think there's solutions on healthcare. I think you got to start looking at what we're offering.
That will start this coming year, so just, They
what?
have a committee to look into healthcare, and
Who has a committee?
the town. Remember Mary Full
Yes.
talked about it, and
No,
that's...
they have that, they've always had that.
Yeah, but there's a contract.
That's the
with-
negotiating committee.
Okay, no, they
I'm saying we
decide.
need a group of folks to go in and say, this is how we reduce healthcare in this town. Because we can't afford 14% every single year.
Right.
And maybe that's higher copays. Maybe that's reduced services, right? I mean, but
Right.
I think there's a-
And that isn't within my purview
No,
or
no,
the
I
school
underst-
committee's purview, but
yeah,
yeah.
but it's in
Yep.
someone's. This is the
Yep.
thing that gets me with this town is every committee has no power, right? Right? I mean, we're going to head the capital planning
Yep.
committee, which has absolutely zero power. I mean, it's the most
Yep.
useless committee we have in town. I think by design. I don't know. It's like a facade, right?
I hope you don't have open positions that
Well,
we're looking to draw people.
We will, because two of the members are likely not. So we have 5 more minutes, and I can get back to you, Anna, but I'm going to ask Jay first, because he hasn't had a chance.
All set. I've been following the meeting, so.
Okay.
I'll
Thank
give
you.
a point of data, which goes back to what you're
Okay,
saying.
go ahead.
According to the website, to the DESI website, in FY '19, Lunenburg had 110 full-time teachers. I don't know how accurate it is not. On this presentation that you gave, after all the cuts, and I hear you, I just want to give this perspective to the town, to the people that are hearing, we are going to have 111 full-time teachers. I don't know supporting staff or anything else. I'm just giving the town that after FY '26, after the cuts proposed by you, according to the presentation you gave, we are going to be about the same level of teachers only that we were in FY '19. Anything else I'm not stating because I'm just looking at information. I just hope, I had made a lot of notes about the school budget, and you guys have addressed most of those items because I've been watching those meetings. The only thing that I hope the school committee will consider is to have a ongoing policy for school choice so that we can get those customers back because, you know, I actually moved to Lunenburg 20-plus years ago because it was a small school district. And that has a lot of benefits to children. You know, like yesterday's select board, not yesterday, on Tuesday's select board had a wonderful testament of a kid who was successful in a small school district, and that does pay off. So it's not perfect, it's not ideal, but I think if the school committee makes a policy, we will have more people coming in.
Thank you. So I do apologize to everyone. We have a lot to get through in the next few weeks to get a budget pulled together. I do thank you for coming back in. I thank the school committee, who's, I think, almost all here, for working hard on coming to where we are. I'm sure there'll be more questions as we go through the next
That's
few
fine.
weeks, and I know you're very responsive.
Okay. Is it okay to email you?
Yeah,
Bill?
yep,
Okay.
absolutely. And I know there's folks that probably want to make public comment and ask some questions, but I'm gonna have to make an executive decision on this that we're not going to allow them tonight, and I apologize for that, just because we are trying to get to the capital planning committee in like 3 minutes. I will say, though, that we're going to have to make hard decisions as a town, and this is going to take direct and hard and maybe at times uncomfortable conversations as a town. So I mean nothing disrespectful at anything I say on things, and I don't think anyone on this commission or, you know, anyone in the audience does either, but we're going to have to figure this out as a group. So I do thank you for coming in.
Yeah, and I thank you for the work that you do. I know that this is not an easy
I know, it's
task.
a lot of information.
So thank you all very much. And again, any other questions that come up, send me an email. Happy to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's just, you know,
So,
I miss
in the last couple minutes we have, just general, is there anything that the board, and if you guys want to speak up, Tom or Jean, that's necessary for tonight?
no.
Okay.
Does anyone on the school committee wants to say anything? Since you have 2 minutes.
All right, with that, and it's going to have to be a roll call vote, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Need a second,
So,
this meeting. We only have till 7:30 tonight. Sorry.
you have,
Did you have something you wanted to?
we have 2 minutes for
We have
weekend.
2 minutes. Okay,
Second.
Go ahead.
second? All right, all those in favor, roll call, Tom Gray,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Anna, Jay,
Aye.
And I for myself. Thank you all, and I apologize for a shortened meeting.